I think it's so sad, man. The whole family arrives to help out. Should be a one happy big family. Yeah, Todoroki is so funny there. Yeah, and now we're crying here, and the tears for his eyes. Oh, this is really broken, guys. This is so sad, man. Papa and I were apologizing, man. The best scene is in the anime. Yeah, this broke me, guys. This straight up broke me. My saddest episode my academia's ever had by far, right? Of course, it's always Papa and I were his best Papa. It comes back to the video that I made earlier this year, right? That Endeavour is the best fitting character in my academia by far. People gotta stop hating on Papa and Endeavour, man. Like, that literally might be the saddest anime season of all time. Of Endeavour apologizing, yeah. And the thing is that Endeavour gets so much incredible unnecessary hate, right? So that's also one reason I feel it too. But it's just like Endeavour is, and I compared him right to Paul in Mushu Tensei when I made those two videos earlier this year, like, you know, the Papa thing, right? And the thing is that Paul is a great character and like a sad scene with him because Paul isn't that perfect father, right? Paul is like a pretty terrible father most of the time. So you're like, okay, but that actually is kind of realistic, right? Endeavour at the same time is very similar because Endeavour. And this is also why I really hate Endeavour slander, right? Because Endeavour might be like a harsh dad or whatever, but Endeavour was never like trying to make his son evil or whatever, right? He was never like punishing his son because of like anger or whatever, so to speak. He was just training his sons really hard, and of course he trained them too hard, but he was never doing it just to be like mean or whatever, right? So Endeavour is a very interesting character because he was never like abusive in that like normal way, right? You think about a father being abusive to the kid, right? And they might beat him or whatever, but it's like Endeavour was never doing that just because he was like a drunk or something and getting home and angry or whatever. No, Endeavour was like, I'm trying to make my sons, stronger heroes, right? So it's a very much like the end justify the means, right? From a moral standpoint, for that matter. But regardless of that, it's like he's much of a deep character, right? And then, as I said so many times before, right? You cannot forget that Rei was also a terrible mom, right? And it's not a whataboutism. My point is that I think that the anime community at large, right, are very, very ridiculous when hating on Endeavour because the mom was equally a terrible parent. She was by far the worst parent from any like circular standpoint towards her son, which was enabling Toya's bad behavior, right? So basically Toya, because of sociopath, because of Endeavour, right? And that's fair, but he's starting to show like sociopathic tendencies, and then mom just ignores it. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go and burn some animals down in the forest. He's like, okay, kid. You know what I mean? There's so many scenes in the backstory where you're like, why is she allowing him to do all these like clearly like tendencies to turn into sociopath? She enables that, right? Then she lies to her husband and so on. So I keep saying it that. And people are always defending her. Oh no, but Itaru was better. Yeah, sure, Itaru was a bad husband, but she also was a bad wife. Okay, and I say she was a terrible wife because if I ask my wife like, okay, please make sure that our son doesn't train with his powers, right? People are gonna say that, oh, but it's your fault because you inspired him to be a hero or whatever. So whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter like what happened before that thing, right? If you ask your wife to please make sure that our son Toya doesn't train, doesn't go to the forest, all this stuff, yeah, you're the parent, guard over him. And she was like, F that, right? Yeah, she was like completely ignoring that, yeah. And she was lying to her husband, right? She was lying to him, being like, oh no, I'm doing that. And then of course it turned out that's a complete lie, right? And we see in the flashback, and Howard goes home, and Toya has his injuries. And then, she's like, oh yeah, I've been lying to you for like a year or something. I've been lying to you every day for a year, right? Like, she's a terrible wife as well, right, you can't overcome that. And people always say, oh, isn't that what's first? No, not really, not at all. She's hurting her own son and her husband because she doesn't want to take responsibility. Yeah, because she doesn't want to deal with it, right? Because she is like, no, I'm depressed or whatever. And I don't mean that, you can, I mean straight up. And people are saying, oh, but Endeavour, beat her or whatever. No, he didn't, okay? Endeavour only did that once after he learned that she was lying to him for a year, right? Yeah. So the whole idea that, no, she was, Endeavour was doing X, Y, and Z, that's all complete bullshit. And every time I talk to people about this thing, half of the people have some kind of weird, like, mental trauma or something over Endeavour and his wife or something, because it never happened, right? And the worst people, right, are saying that Endeavour could order her, yeah. You're like, oh, Endeavour or his wife. No, he never did that. He married his wife. She was completely fine with marrying Endeavour because he was a famous rich hero. She's a rich family there, right there. And they had like an arranged marriage. That is true. But obviously, arranged marriage aren't that uncommon historically wise, right? And in Japan, they still exist. And this is supposed to be like, like two Japanese like power. She's like a rich Japanese, ancestral family, whatever, right? So she was fine with that, and then they seemingly had like a good marriage, right? Until, of course, Toya, and she was started lying about Toya and so on. Yeah, there's no evidence whatsoever that they had like a bad marriage, for the first 10 years or whatever. Yeah, basically. So it's like no, like that never happened, and he never forced stuff on her. And people say, oh, but he forced her to marry her. No, he didn't. He was, again, typical arranged marriage, right? He was like, oh, do you want to marry me? And her and her... And I think it's fair to say that perhaps her parents kind of, if anything, I would say her parents are the one that maybe forced her down, right? Because her parents were like, oh, you have to marry him because of the, the ancestral family lineage and money and all this stuff, yeah. So if anything, it was her parents doing it, not the dower. It's kind of like the prince going to the neighbor country, right? And asking, oh, I want to marry the princess in this country, okay? And the princess is like, well, okay, maybe, right? And then her father, the king, is like, you have to marry him, right? That's the father's fault. You can't blame the prince for asking if he can marry the princess, right? No, then the other king of the other country, that's the guy making history, right? And in this case here, her parents then are a little bit like that, right? But of course, it's like modern Japan, so they don't have that powerful king. But it's kind of like, they're kind of like, oh, it would be really great if you marry him because of the, status and the family history and so on, right? So again, it's much more her parents' fault, if anything, right? Rather than the dower's fault. Again, it's like the kind of the prince coming from the sideline being like, oh, I want to marry this beautiful ice princess, right? But regardless, they didn't have like a bad marriage for the first, number of years, right? Until she started lying about Toya. So it's also really weird people are defending her, saying that, oh no, she did nothing wrong whatsoever, and it's all Endeavor's fault, and she should have. Of course, she was gonna lie to Endeavor. He was ordering her something. It's like, no, it never happened. So it's ridiculous. But anyway, long story short, my point is that she then basically has a mental breakdown later, right, with the Koshoto, and then goes to the mental hospital, whatever, right? But in between that, before she went really crazy, she of course never really took responsibility, right, for what she did to Toya or with being a mom, right? Because again, she was ignoring him, he was doing bad stuff, right? So this scene was really great, really emotional, right? Seeing mom finally saying that, no, it's actually my fault too, and she's coming in there like throwing her ice ability on Toya, being like, oh, I was a bad mom to you, sorry, which she actually literally was, right? So I don't, yeah, people are gonna say, no, but she was a terrible mom to her son, like a really terrible mother, and from any like psychological standpoint, she was a much worse parent than dad was by far, okay? And it's always kind of weird that people are only blaming him. But my point is that in general, right, that they're both pretty bad parents in different ways, right? But Endeavour then has been trying to, apologize for that early season, right? Take responsibility and so forth, right? Come on terms with that, right? So yeah, I think it was a really great scene here, seeing her finally also basically like admitting that to Toya, right? Which she kind of had already too, of course, her older children, I suppose, before that. So that was like a really great scene overall, right? And also a good scene for her, I think, because obviously she has all this guilt, right? And it's never been explained, but I guess we can always assume that the reason she burned her other son's face, right, is of course because she had all these guilt feelings over her first son, right? A large reason why she hated Shoto as a kid, right, is because she saw Endeavour in him, but also probably saw Toya and all this stuff, right? So yeah, like it's a good conclusion for her too, to finally having to confront this thing, right? And then also the other kids appear as well. Those two though are just completely like, we got your mom. Those two poor people. Yeah, the other siblings are coming in too though, like, we're gonna help out. Yeah, those two are like, yeah, those two have no real, of course, possibility over this thing though. They were just like, we're here for you. Yeah, that was just kind of painful though. They were like, oh, we're also here. But yeah, easily the most emotional, heart-wrecking episode of My Academia. But I think, again, this was like the best scene. The crying later when he apologizing really broke me as well. But just, I think this is, from an emotional writing standpoint, it was really great to see Mom finally taking possibility, and being like, oh, I'm sorry if I was a terrible mom. I'm also here to fight you. Yeah, like I'm also here to defeat you, evil son. Yeah, like that was great. And in the end, because one thing that I think people always also miss as Endeavour is that Endeavour actually loves his wife, right? And you can say that, oh, but he was a bad husband, but whatever, right? It's kind of said over with Paul too. That's why I like the writing of potential, right? Because Paul is like, well, Paul also likes his wife, as we see with, I gotta save my wife, right? In this, not spoiled here, but if you see potential, you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, Paul loves seeing it to save his wife, but he's also cheating on his wife. You know what I mean? So he's, he's dual wielding, right? So he loves the wife, but he also loves all the women, right? I mean, so he's not like he's a very flawed person, right? But he still loves his wife. And Endeavour, same thing here too. That's why I also think Endeavor's writing is so good, because Endeavour is really desperate here, right, to protect his wife. He's like, no, Rei, don't join. You can't handle his heat. You're gonna injure yourself. Yeah, he's very desperate, trying to defend his wife in this scene, right? Because people, I think, are constantly saying people completely misunderstand Endeavour as a character, right? And Endeavour is a very, very multi-complicated character, right? Very complex character writing. And people don't see him as very one-dimensional. Oh, he hates his wife because she lied to him and he means to her, whatever. But no, he's more like, I love my wife, but then she lied to me, so now I can't trust her. They're into arguments, right? So he's like a failed marriage, but he actually loves his wife, right? And she kind of loves him back in this weird way too, right? So they have this weird thing. So this scene here was really great again, because it kind of shows you that, no, he actually do love his wife, even though he's not the perfect husband, right? And I think that's just something that, this is why people hate Endeavour, right, so much probably, because they can't understand how complicated his character is, right? Because he's actually so real, right? People are always like looking at Endeavour and hating him necessarily, because he actually is like a real person, right? Where most people get married and they're not gonna have this like fairy tale perfect marriage, right? And now of course their marriage here, Rei and Endeavour, or Shoji then, or not the perfect marriage, of course not, right? But he actually does love his wife, and he wants his wife to not get injured by Endeavour here, to protect, kind of cover her, right, from the fire, right? And people are like, why do he doesn't hate his wife? He's just he's not the perfect husband, but he still loves his wife, right? So that's why, again, he's so real. People can't handle that, because he actually reminds them of actual real people, right? That most people, almost every marriage, right, or whatever, if you grew up with your parents, right, your parents are not gonna be always perfect with each other, right? Who's actually grown up in a life where, where your parents are just perfect, always, never fighting, never this thing, no arguments. Maybe you hide it for you, but like that's not the system, right? And again, obviously, this is far from a good marriage thing, but he still loves her, right? Yeah. So it's that kind of feel to it. You just have with Paul too, right? He's cheating with his wife, but he still loves her, right? Yeah. So again, a flawed human being, right? And that's why people hate him so much. I keep saying that, but that really is why, right? Because he's actually is so real. He reminds me of a real person. With he fights with his wife, argues with her. They have all these debates or whatever, right? But he actually still loves her, and she also in here. He's trying to cover her, trying to fight the flames. She wants to be injured, and all this stuff, right? And she's also, and that's why she's so great, because Rei is also like, no, it's also my fault. I was a terrible mom, so it's also my pain to bear as well, right? So it's also like my issue as well, right? You can't just fight our evil son by yourself. I'm also here to fight him, right? Because I also did bad stuff as a mom or whatever, so I also have to help out here as a wife and so on. So it's a very, very real episode, fantastic episode, right? But I think people really struggle with Endeavour because of some reasons. Because I think people have this really stupid idea, right? It's a very, very juvenile idea that, oh, when you get married, oh, I will have the perfect marriage, It's kind of, I guess it's kind of like people with politics too, I suppose. They're always like, well, when I was the politician leader, then it would be perfect. Yeah, you know what I mean? I think people have this incredible, stupid idea that, well, obviously, all those bad marriage stuff from evil people or whatever, and that was evil, and so on. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. So they can't handle a character actually being so complicated. But anyway, best episode of Academia, I would say easily, probably. It's the most emotional, at least. Yeah, by far, right? And I guess it does conclude this ending. I mean, I would guess they're gonna end up together, of course, again. I would bet you my money that in the epilogue, like, they're gonna be happily married, probably. That's how the author invited. I bet your money on that. They're gonna just live together and be happy. Like, seriously. That's how it's gonna end. I'm not sure on that. But I think for now, then we probably won't see much more of the Todorokis until like the end of the anime or whatever. Because now it feels like Endeavour is out, Dabi cannot fight that. If Dabi get resurrected again, it's to be ridiculous. That won't happen, right? And I feel that Shota's also probably tired now and so on. But he might have some epilogue. Maybe Shota will have more fights later. Maybe that I can see. Endeavour I think is out now, but maybe his son, maybe the boy wonder, Axel Firepower. Maybe he will recover and be able to join a later fight, perhaps, right? Now, I was surprised there was no All Might though, yeah. But anyway, then the video guys subscribe to like button, and next video I guess we had the All Might fight. Yeah, All Might's like, come fight for you guys, and that's like, he doesn't completely ignore All Might, yeah. He went to this thing completely, that was a big surprise. But I see you guys have a great day.